Presentation number 2 under the immune system and lymph system. Our objective is discuss the immune system and compare non-specific and specific immunity, natural and artificial immunity, and active and passive immunity. Non-specific immunity, which means that it's an immunity not to any particular one item that may come into the system. So what it is that it's a general overview of what the body can do to prevent us from getting sick. So the skin and mucous membranes help with protecting us from harm. Tears wash out our eyes. Mucus cleans out our respiratory system. And phagocytosis of the bacteria by the red blood cells. Those are all mechanisms that prevent us from getting sick. What we have when that happens, any of those things happen, we might have an inflammatory response. So it attacks the immune cells at the site of injury and increases the blood flow to the area. It increases vascular permeability. It brings the white blood cells there to clean up the mess. This is a diagram that shows us about the inflammation response. So what happens with that is that it's a non-specific response that occurs in the body. So an example, like I mentioned before, is where you have an infection and the infection triggers a set of responses that tend to inhibit or destroy the bacteria. Some of the signs and symptoms of the inflammatory response being triggered are fever, swelling, redness, heat, and pain. This table is from your book. It's 323, and in reality it reads a whole lot clearer than this slide does. What you're going to look at is that non-specific has no memory. Specific is going to remember. It has a antigen-antibody combination. Okay, the mechanism of non-specific defense. So what happens is that we have a chemical barrier, which it prevents foreign substances from entering the body, which are your mucus and your secretions. You have inflammation that produces a defense, and the defense is the fever. You have phagocytosis, and what happens with phagocytosis is the neutrophils, they're the first ones to get there, and what they will do is they will phagocytose and trigger the inflammation response. Then the monocytes, see here's the monocytes, they enlarge and become macrophages, and those macrophages, they can eat like nobody's business. Then you have the complementary proteins. And so this is a group of plasma proteins, and what it does is it goes in there and it makes the entity explode, or lyse. See, it's called lysis, where it ruptures. Specific immunity. It's called adaptive or acquired immunity. And what happens is that you're exposed to something and the body creates a protective mechanism that when the second time you're exposed to that, you're immune and you will not become sick. That's what we talk about when we talk about immunizations. Immunizations are a type of specific immunity. Specific immunity is broken down again into two parts. There's the natural and the artificial. The natural immunity, it's exposure to a causative agent that's not deliberate. And it's also called active immunity. And the reason it's called active immunity is that you were exposed to an active disease. Passive immunity is where you didn't have the disease, but that immunity was shared in some form. And so passive natural immunity is where the fetus gets protected by way of the placenta, or the mother gives that first milk to that baby. And the breast milk will help that baby for the first while to be immune to the same stuff that the mother is. Artificial immunity, and it's exposure to a causative agent that is deliberate. And so that can be in two different forms as well. It could be active. And so what active is where you've received an immunization. And that immunization caused you to have artificial immunity. Then there's passive immunity. And passive immunity is where I get the disease, I get better, you take my blood and you give it to somebody else so that they have immunity to that disease. Now, understand though that passive immunity does not last long. It's temporary. Active immunity is for the rest of your life. This particular table is on 325, and you want to take a real good look at that because, you know, this screams test question. You know, what kind of immunity do you have when blah, 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 blah has happened? Okay, so please take a real close look at that. Here again, get out your review sheet, see if you have everything covered, if you understand all of it. If you have questions, please put them on Edmodo so that everybody can see them, because if you have a question, more than likely somebody else has the same question.